So we won't see him today, but he does live out here. So you guys may be wondering why we have the need for a big cat sanctuary in northwest Arkansas. And for a little bit of an idea, there are actually 10,000 to 20,000 tigers estimated living as pets and things like that in the United States.
Wow.
So we don't know exactly how many there are because we don't have a federal system for counting and keeping track of these guys. So there could actually be more or less than we think. If we estimate at 10,000, only about 4% of those animals are being kept in accredited zoos and sanctuaries. So accredited zoos are accredited by the AZA, and then accredited sanctuaries, sorry about that, are accredited by the Global Federation of Animal Sanctuaries, which is what we are accredited by here at Turpentine Creek. So accreditation is really important because it makes sure there's like an outside body that says we're meeting a high standard of care. So as a true sanctuary, the main things you need to know is that we do not buy, sell, breed, or trade. And we also do not touch any of our cats here. So we have dangerous predators and we don't put our hands on them. We don't share the same physical space as them at any time. We're very, very careful about our safety here. The first animal that we're passing by on here is going to be Flip, the Coatimundi. I don't see her out right now. Of course, if there's any animals that you guys see before I see, feel free to let me know. But there's a picture of her on her sign there. So Flip is a relative of the raccoon, like the southern cousin of the raccoon. And her superpower is that she can smell up to about 2 feet into the ground. So she's a pretty cool little animal. She is 16 years old. We're also passing by some of our lodgings, so some people do often come out here and stay with us. That's another way people support us. And this is our most popular lodging here because it's next door to one of our really awesome cats, Fergie, who we'll hopefully see in a minute. I do see her laying in her night house, so her door is open. She's kind of laying in her doorway right now, way back there. So can any of you guys tell me what kind of a cat Fergie is? And you know, it's kind of hard to see. Do you have a guess?
A lion?
A lion, that's a really good guess. Does anyone else have a guess?
I have a guess.
What's your guess? Yeah. So, she's actually a liar.
These are all
I
cats.
feel a little like I
Yeah,
feel like a little bit.
So she's a lion dad and a tiger mom. They don't exist out in the wild, so big cats don't naturally hybridize. But they have been created in captivity. A lot of people create them so they draw a crowd and they can make lots of money off of them. So Fergie's also from our Colorado project. So she was rescued back in 2016 along with Tanny and kids that in the group before, like he talked about. We'll talk more about that rescue later on because we did get 35 cats from that rescue. We'll meet a couple more of them along the way. We also have, speaking of lions, we do have lions that live here across the street from her. There are some habitats you'll also kind of see in the background as well. There is another area of the sanctuary currently closed due to coronavirus, but if you see a cat back there and you have a question about them, I can also talk to you about those ones. So this right here under her bench is Laurie. Laurie is a 4-year-old lioness, and she was rescued from a facility in Indiana, and that facility was affiliated with the Tiger King facility. She came from there. There were over 120 violations of animal welfare that happened at that facility prior to her being rescued and ultimately it being shut down. So she was rescued as part of an Endangered Species Act lawsuit along with 7 other cats, and that's why she was able to come with us. One of the problems at that facility was that they were declawing their big cats. And declawing is not just trimming their toenails. Declawing is cutting off parts of their fingers. So it's like cutting you off to that first knuckle. But you don't walk on your hands, but she does. So when she walks on those tiptoes, which is how cats stand, that causes the change in the way that she bears her weight in her body. And so over time, they develop a lot of painful arthritis, especially the declawed cats, and it happens earlier than it typically would. So all of our declawed cats, like Maury, are on a pain management program. They get things like glucosamine and chondroitin to help keep their joints nice, and they also, they also get pain medication as well.
You don't see the big furry thing up there?
Down there in the night house is Keith. So Chief and Mari are currently separated and alternating after this habitat. He was rescued with Mari. He's much older. He's about 15 years old. And of those animals, he was in the worst shape when they arrived from that facility. So he was really, really thin. He was full of parasites. He actually had not moved in 2 days just prior to his rescue. He had kind of shut down. So when we arrived at the facility, our curator did administer subcutaneous fluids, so it's fluid under the skin to help him get hydration back. And before the fluid even absorbed into his body, he actually stood up and voluntarily loaded into the roll transporter. So it was like he knew that we were there to help him, which was really good because with the shape he was in, we would not have wanted to sedate him. That's hard on them. They're hard on their bodies. So Chief is definitely one of the cats that stands out here for how far he's come since he's been here. He looks like a whole different cat from the way that he looks. So for sure. All of our African cats, like our lions, do have feet in their dens. So those concrete dens back there, we like to repurpose materials around here. Those are never been used septic tanks that have had a hole cut in them. And all the ones for the lions as well as the elderly cats do have heaters in them for the winter time and when it's really cold. Out in the summer, of course, we don't really turn them on. We want to keep it nice and cool in there for them, and then they also have the shade cloths in the summer to help keep them cool as well. As we keep on moving, we're going to see our servals. So we didn't see Safe Day or Tuesday, but we do have 6 more cats that live in the serval habitat here, and 5 of them are servals. So there's a picture on the side, so we all know what we're looking for, and so you guys might spot them before I do. So all of these guys were originally rescued from being kept in someone's pen. So these are wild animals. They live in Africa, and they are really good predators. That means they're really good at catching things they might want to eat. So a lion or a tiger, they're a predator too, but they only catch about 1 in 10 things that they go after. You guys have a guess for how often a serval might catch what they're going after?
What's kind of a rodent?
Once a day?
Once a day would be nice. So these guys catch about half of what they go after. So that's pretty impressive. So 5 out of 10 things that they go after, they're going to catch. They're really, really good hunters. One of their skills that helps them to catch all that prey is that they can jump about 10 feet into the air from standing still. And so they can actually catch birds that are taking off in flight.
Thank you for putting.
We sold this on
Yeah.
Nova.
Thank you for putting the thing on top.
Yeah, exactly. So all of our habitats are designed specifically for the type of animal that lives there. So anybody who jumps or climbs really well will have a full roof. So when we went to the discovery area, we also saw like some of the fences look different. So like
After this, can we go to bed?
a fence for one of our big old, like our grizzly bear looks different than the fences designed to handle our tigers. Versus, the leopard also has a full roof because they're really amazing.
Wait,
to
come
find.
on.
See one right there?
Oh, yes.
Where?
On the fence line over there. She's coming back right there.
I cannot tell. I see him.
Oh, see it now.
So, Whistler was kept as a pet, like all of our other servals, and he's kind of hiding behind that reed grass right there. But his owner, when they decided they didn't want him anymore, let him go in Colorado, and it happened to be the winter time. So unfortunately, this poor guy, his ear tips frosted off.
Hey, it makes
before
sense.
he was
Getting in
found.
like this, getting in like that.
He's very lucky that he didn't freeze to death out there. So it's not a good start. But thankfully he does have a home for life here with us. So he'll be here for the rest of his life, and we'll do our best to give him everything that he needs. So he doesn't have to ever go through anything like that again. Next we're going to see Daniel and Chloe. And these are 2 more African lions.
I see one.
And
Right there.
so I see
They're way up there.
Chloe up on her bench, and then Daniel is laying in the grass behind. But he has the big mane. So the boy always have the mane. Yeah?
The
I can't
what?
hear what she said.
What? He said that he's the biggest of all the cats.
Oh, the tigers are actually bigger
Well,
than
yeah,
the
they're bigger
lions,
than
but the lions aren't really big. So,
You know how big a lion is?
Chloe and Daniel, they came here from Colorado as well. So one of the problems at that facility was that they were living in mulch that has nails and things in it. When they're walking on nails every day. So that was a really big problem at that facility. There are over 20 violations that they've been cited for and they've been fined. But even though they've been repeatedly fined, they were allowed to continue to stay open. So the reason these cats were finally rescued is because the owner of that facility was diagnosed with a terminal illness, and so they were able to work on a way to get these cats rescued. So these cats still were not legally confiscated, despite all the condition problems there at that facility. So that just goes to show you that our laws simply are not strong enough to protect these cats living in our country today. So there is a bill that was introduced into Congress that could change all that. It's known as the Big Cat and Public Safety Act. And we believe it's very, very important. So it would do a whole lot to protect these cats because we're currently not doing enough. The conditions that these cats come from and the conditions that they're allowed to stay in for long periods of time can be really unacceptable. So I really encourage you to look into it. If you decide you want to support it, there's a really easy way at tcwr.org/advocacy. There's a form. You just put in the basic information, and it'll actually send an email for you. Or you can, of course, call your congressman. But it do things like cup heading. We'll talk more about what cup heading is later on.
Which is funny.
So, next cat we're going to see is Sabo. And Sabo is another African lion who's laying up there by the fence. You can see how relaxed he is. Feels very at home on the grass there. So Sabo is from Branson, Missouri, and he was rescued along with a black bear, a leopard, and 5 tigers, as well as Flip the Powhatan Lindy, who we went by before. I'll talk more about their rescue at the end. But my favorite thing about Sabo is that he is a big talker. He likes to start the carol. So when all the lions kind of talk together, we call that caroling, and they communicate all back and forth. So Sabo really enjoys getting things kicked off around here. And you can hear those carols from up to about 5 miles away. So it's very, very loud. And sometimes Sabo will go and he'll carol and no one will respond to him. He'll just talk by himself. But most of the time our other lions will join in. And it's pretty awesome. He also has that big beautiful mane. So the larger and darker the mane is, the more dominant the male, the higher the testosterone. And that's what the female lionesses find attractive in a male, is that large, dark mane.
See, I told you it was the reason you married me.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So next is Savannah, and she is a lioness. I don't see her out right now, which is okay. She doesn't have to be out if she doesn't want to be. So we don't force our animals to be out on display, but I do see some of her toys down here at the bottom, so I can talk really quickly about enrichment. So our animals do get something new once every 5 days. We will lock them into their night house. We'll have 2 separate people check the door to make sure that it's secure. Then we'll radio to get permission to enter, and then we will enter if permission is given to do maintenance. So we will clean up all the messes and get fresh things to play with. So that might be something new to smell, like a perfume or a spice, or it could be boxes, which we're doing boxes with spices this week. We can also give them something they might want to eat. We might hide chicken around their habitat, for example. Something different every week because we don't want it to get old. We want it to always be something that is engaging their brain and keeping them active. Because obviously in the wild, they have many, many miles to roam and so many things to do and smells to smell and things to engage with. We want to keep them using all those natural instincts to explore new objects. So these next cats, their names are Shakira, and her nickname is Mama, so that's what I'll call her, and Bosco. And Bosco is actually the dad to all of Shakira's babies. And so these guys came from a Colorado facility as well. You guys actually in the discovery area saw some of their babies. So Tanya, Kismet, and Aurora are the babies of Mama and Bosco, as well as 4 more cats, one of which we will see on the tour later on down the line. So this is Bosco laying on his bench, and I think I saw Mama up in her night house. And so these guys were used to breed for what's called cub petting or pay to play. And what that is a facility, if you've ever seen a facility that allows the public or visitors to touch or bottle feed a cub or interact with them in any way like that. Because that's a big money maker. And so what they do is they have to have a constant supply of very young cubs. Because once the cub is about 3 or 4 months old, they start to get really big. And once those cubs are really big, they can start to hurt people. So they can't use them for cub petting anymore because they can't let people touch them. Because it's too dangerous. And so those cubs age out. And so behind the scenes, they have to have constantly breeding animals. Like if you guys have heard of a puppy mill, how that's not a good place for dogs. It's kind of like that, but for tigers. So there's Mama way up at the top. You can see she has really faint stripes, so she's what's called a pure white tiger. And so behind the scenes are animals like Mama and Bosco. And so if you have a tiger in the wild, she will raise her cubs for 2 to 3 years, and she'll teach them how to be real tigers. And if those cubs were to, something bad happens to them and they were to die, she will actually go right ahead and breed again. So in these facilities, what they do is instead of allowing her to raise those cubs, they'll pull them within the first 2 days. And so her body reacts the same way it would in the wild if those cubs were to die, and she'll go back into heat and breed again. So she's constantly being bred. And so instead of having those 2+ years to raise her cubs, she ended up having 4 litters in 2 years. So as you can imagine, that's really hard on her. And it's also hard on those cubs. So Blackfire, Rockland, and Peyton are 3 of her cubs, and they were about 4 months old when we arrived in Colorado. And they were already extremely ill. They had developed what's known as metabolic bone disease, and that's what happens when they don't get the right nutrients. So if they don't get their mom's milk, they get sick with that because they don't have enough calcium. Their bones don't develop properly. They are very fragile bones. And so as these people were paying to play with them and use them as photo opportunities, their bones were literally breaking. They had 17 fractures or broken bones among 3 cubs by the time we arrived. So these cubs could not walk. They were just dragging themselves when they tried to get around. And we didn't think that they were going to survive or have a quality of life. Thankfully, these guys were really strong little fighters, and they showed us that they weren't ready to give up, and so we didn't. And they're all still alive today. And so I'm really, really thankful for them. They are a big reminder about why we do what we do. So we're able to give them their lives back. They will always have special needs because of the way that they grew up. They, their bones will never be normal bones, but we are able to give them a quality of life, and they're all really amazing cats today. So there is that silver lining, but we also have to keep in mind all the other cub petting operations out there, all the other cubs out there. So this is one of the big reasons why we need this legislation to help protect those cats out there, because we can't take every single cat out there. We need to stop this before it happens to them. So I really appreciate you guys sitting through that story, because I know that that's a hard one. It's a hard one for me to tell. And if any of you guys have done cub petting before, I do want to tell you that I've been there in the moment of realization where that was not a good thing. Because when I was a kid, my parents got my photograph taken with a cub. And, it breaks my heart because we had no idea that was a bad thing. We had no idea what happens behind the scenes to those cubs and to their mothers. And we never would have done that if we knew. And I think a lot of the people out there who are giving money to these people have no idea that it's a bad thing. And so that's one of the reasons why we have to spread the word about this so much. It's so important because many of our cats, even that come from other places, started out in a place like this. Because when they're too old to be used in cub petting, they have to get rid of them. And if they can't sell them or give them away, they will be killed for their part, used in canton, or even just killed not to have the cost of feeding them. So it's a really, really heartbreaking industry. Now on the other side, as you're going by, there are some fence lines you might see in the distance. So that area is known as Rescue Ridge. It was built 20 habitats in 128 days for the mountain bird rescue. Now, all the cats from the mountain bird rescue were elderly and they've since passed away. So we now use that area as a retirement area for our older cats. All the dens are heated and on nice flat ground. It's basically specially designed for them. In 2018, we added as well 2 naturalistic bear habitats, the larger of which being 2.4 acres, which houses 3 of our young bears. And so we're really, really proud of those habitats. Currently, we don't take any tourists down there because we're trying to protect that most vulnerable population from coronavirus. So we're also going to pass by. This is Glacier and Ungawa. The Glacier is the white tiger, and Ungawa is the lioness. So these guys have never lived together in the wild, so it can be kind of funny seeing them together. So in the wild, lions almost entirely live in Africa, and tigers live in Asia. They don't overlap, and they would never ever breed. Even if they did live together, live near each other, they're very different animals. So tigers live entirely solitary lives for the most part, and lions are truly social cats. So they would not, the chances of them getting along and being accepted into each other's lifestyle is basically 0. But when they're kind of forced together by people, you have instances like this. So we did not introduce them, they were rescued together. When we have animals rescued living together, we will keep them together so long as they continue to be happy. If they were to let us know that they don't want to be together, we would separate them. But when you have a tiger dad and a lion mom, which is what these guys would create, if they have babies, you are a tigon. So it's a similar hybrid to the liger, and they also don't exist in the wild. A lot of the hybrid animals have health problems. The main one we talked about is with the liger. I can talk about it a little bit more when we see another one of our ligers here in a moment. But for now, I want to mention that we have our vet hospital over here. It was completed in 2016, just prior to our Colorado project. It was very, very useful to us during that time. So we have our own 3 recovery rooms down there that were specially designed by our curator to meet our needs. We also have our own staff veterinarian named Dr. Helen, and she actually started out as an animal care intern here, and then went off to vet school and came back to us. So that's really awesome. We're really proud to have her on here, helping us to make sure that we're taking care of the cats. And we are, of course, an animal care for eyes and ears. If we notice something with a cat, we will also write everything down for her at the end of the day so she knows how everybody's doing. So we try to help her as much as we can, keep on top of everything, and keep up with all the cats. Because we have about 90 animals here, and we want to make sure every single one of them is getting the care that they need and they deserve. We're also passing by our commissary road, so we do prepare our own diets for all the cats down here. We feed out about 500 pounds of meat every single day. We feed out a little more in the winter and a little less in the summer, because when they're in the winter, they're burning a lot of calories to try to keep warm. So these guys, like grown tiger, can eat between about 5 pounds to about 20 pounds. The males tend to be larger, they can eat more. I think our cat is currently getting the most. He's getting 18 pounds. And so this habitat is currently empty. So on the other side of the street, we do have Remington, and he lives here with Luna. And these guys came from a facility in Florida. So at that facility, they were used to a petting type experience where people would pay money to swim with them when they were babies. And so there's Luna at the top of the hill. And these guys, that's how they grew up. They grew up being dragged into pools to swim with tourists and being kept up when they were little babies. All they want to do is eat and sleep. But obviously they couldn't really do a whole lot of that because they needed to make money off of these guys. Well, they were small enough to keep making money off of them in that way. So they were rescued as part of an Endangered Species Act lawsuit. You see Luna with her box up there. So that's our enrichment of the week. And so it's not a good way to start out. These guys, thankfully, they've improved a lot since they've been here. So Luna even started to play with her pool last year, which was really awesome for us because the tigers really love water, and it was really sad to hear about how something that they're supposed to love, like the water, is kind of turned into a bad thing out of that facility where they came from, where they grew up.
Yeah, someone over here.
So,
Yep.
we're also going to pass by Karma. You can see her laying here in the grass.
Oh, wow.
So Karma is another liger. The liger is one of the big health problems that they get is called gigantism. And what that means is that they grow really big, and then sometimes their organs can't support them anymore. So they tend to die early, and they have things like heart failure that happen to them. They also get a lot of other health problems like obesity, or they're prone to them. These are animals that aren't meant to exist, so they have a lot of problems. Also, the males, they can't breed, but the females can about half the time. So there are also some second generation hybrids. So Lakota, who we saw in the discovery area, that big guy, he's actually a Thai liger. So he has a tiger father and a liger mother. So they continue to make even rarer and rarer hybrids because the more rare it is, the more people are going to want to see what you have because they've never seen it before. So it's a natural curiosity, but it's kind of perverted in this way, in a way that's not fair to the cat. It's obviously an animal that's created to have all these health problems. It can't live the same kind of quality of life as an animal that does not have these health problems. So Karma, thankfully, she's doing well. Right now, she's from a drive-through safari park in Stratford, Missouri. And she came here along with some other cats. And she is a really, really fun cat.
How old is she?
What?
How old is she?
Oh gosh, I'm not sure how old Karma is. That's a good question. Can you see on her sign back there? Yeah, it's hard to keep track.
2009 is when she was born.
But Karma's a really cool cat. We did her habitat today and gave her fresh boxes. So that box that has rosemary and cinnamon in it. And she decided she would rather roll in her leaf pile, which is fine. It's really fun to see her rolling around and having a good time. So sometimes they don't do exactly what we expect, and that's okay, as long as they're doing well. I'm happy. So we're also going to pass by Miles. And Miles came here from Indiana along with Laurie. She's Savannah, those lions you met before. And I don't see her out right now. She is 7 years old, and she is a really funny cat. So she usually doesn't care too much about the public, but she's really obsessed with her keepers. Now on the other side of us, we're going to see an example of one of our night houses. And as I said before, these night houses are very useful in situations like storms when we need to protect these cats in a roof area. So their dens are always in their night house, as well as their waters, and we also feed them in their night house. So those black food box holders you can see on the ground, that's how we safely feed our cats while we're not sharing the same space. So we get these big metal trays, and we will add all their food and any supplements they might need onto that food into that hotel tray. And then there are traps in that box underneath the lid, and we'll slide it in like a drawer, and then we'll pull the lid away, and then turn the lid and make it stand up against the fence so they cannot kick the dish back out. And so that's how we safely feed these guys. So those trees that are up along the night house there are to help break up the space and make them feel a little more comfortable and at home in their night house. So Tigger and Floyd are the names of the 2 cats who live here. They originally started out as survivors of the pup petting industry, and then they were privately owned. So these guys are only about 3 years old. Tigers grow for about 4 to 5 years of their lives. So these guys still might do a little bit more growing. To give you an idea, these guys grow really, really fast. They grow really, really big. So that's Floyd right there, laying in the shade, and then Tigger is the one in the night house. So you can see that Tigger looks a little funny. His stripes are not black. They're more orange in color, and that is because he has a genetic mutation, and that genetic mutation is brought out through inbreeding, and people really like it. They think it's really beautiful. They call them golden tabbies or strawberry tigers, and as beautiful as Peter is, one of my friends likes to say he looks like golden sunshine. As beautiful as he is, it's not fair to create animals with these genetic mutations that are brought out through inbreeding, because they also get all sorts of health problems as a result of the inbreeding.
You're being disruptive.
So, on the other side of the street, we're passing by Concho and Savannah. I can see one of them way up on the hill behind the trees. You can kind of see how the tigers blend in. So you might think a bright orange cat with these crazy stripes isn't going to blend in the forest or in the jungle, but they actually blend in really well. So they have those white bellies that help hide the shadow of them, and then they have the stripes that help break up their outline. So they're really well camouflaged. So these two that live here are brothers, and they came here from the Colorado project.
Quiet.
And they have really amazing stripes, as do all of our tigers. And every tiger's stripes, they are unique. So you have something too that is unique. So if you look at your fingerprint, that's kind of like your own set of stripes. And their stripes are actually also on their skin, like your fingerprint. So if you were to shave their fur, you'd see those stripes all the way down to the skin like a tattoo. So they're really, really cool. We also have cats that live right here, and their names are Roman and Donner, and they're two large male white tigers. So I don't see them out right now, and that's okay. So I can talk to you a little bit about white tigers. So we've seen a lot of white tigers today, and that might seem a little funny because they're supposed to be really rare. So where do you guys think a white tiger might come from? No guesses?
I have no idea.
Okay, it's kind of tricky because you might think that they come from a place that has a lot of snow because that's where they would blend in, but they actually come from India. So as you can imagine, a white tiger is not going to blend in very well in a jungle. So there are actually about 1 in 10,000 shots of a Bengal tiger being born without white coloration. It's a genetic mutation, just like the golden tabbies we just talked about. It's really rare in the wild. However, in 1951, a man captured a 9-month-old cub from the wild, and he inbred him to his daughters to create all the white tigers we have in the United States today. And so they have a lot of health problems as a result of that inbreeding. All these white tigers, they have a problem where they can't see properly. They're like cross-eyed. Their optic nerve isn't wired correctly, so they have really poor depth perception. And they also get things like clubbed feet or crooked teeth, sometimes to the point where they can't close their mouths properly. All sorts of different things that go wrong with these guys. So we'll talk more in the discovery area. We can talk about Penny. This is one of our white tigers we had in the past who had really obvious deformities as a result of being born a white tiger. So as beautiful as they are also not fair to white tigers, and no reputable facility today will breed them because we all know that it's not good for them, it's not fair to the animals. So everybody here has been working hard to keep everything nice and weed-eated.